Well, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is finally here, and in my opinion, aside from a few slight bumps, we're off to a great start. Knowing how much plot is still to come in the book, I do wish we got a bit more padding in this episode, time for the characters to just vibe. Additionally, the use of gross-out humor was way too frequent and over the top. I get that this is a story in the Game of Thrones universe, but there's a big difference between realism and grossness that I think the writers of this episode failed to realize. But really, those are my only complaints here, and they're very minor. Something immensely positive that stood out to me right away during my first viewing of the episode, and even more so during my rewatch, was the incredible score. Dan Romer has taken on the mantle from franchise legend Ramin Djawadi this time around, bringing such a distinct and welcome flavor to the music. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, at least at its outset, is a very different kind of story from Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, and the score does a perfect job at capturing that unique vibe. Without further ado, let's get into the content of the episode proper. Our story begins with Dunk burying his mentor, Sir Arlen. I really admire that the show, at least for now, is sticking with the book and not explicitly showing Arlen knighting Dunk. The ambiguity in not knowing whether Dunk is lying or telling the truth about the validity of his knighthood is a core part of the narrative, and the very high chance that Dunk isn't a legitimate knight has major thematic importance through the whole Knight of the Seven Kingdoms book. Dunk makes the decision to kickstart his career by journeying to a tournament in Ashford, a town in the Reach region of Westeros. If he wins the tournament, not only will he make a name for himself as a Hedge knight, but he'll win the money to get the armor and other supplies he needs to actually do the job. There is, however, a big catch. The rules of the tournament state that each loser has to forfeit their supplies to the winner, and then ransom them back, something that Dunk does not have the money to do. He has to win, no matter what. On the way to the tournament, he stops at an inn where he encounters two mysterious characters. Outside the inn is where he first meets Egg, who of course eventually tails him all the way to Ashford and becomes his temporary squire. Through Egg's snarky banter, we get a few signs that this supposed stable boy isn't quite what he seems. Though Dunk naturally assumes Egg is the innkeeper's son, Egg never confirms this verbally. In fact, when pressed, Egg admits that his mother is dead. Dunk is ready to press further, but his mind is overcome by sympathy when he assumes Egg is an orphan boy from Flea Bottom like him, and the subject shifts. Yet again, Egg never verbally confirms Dunk's assumption here. Ironically, the attributes that endear Dunk to Egg the most are things that may not be true. When inside the tavern, Dunk encounters a mysterious drunken man. Though we aren't yet told who this person is, Dunk infers that he is a lord, likely due to his robes. The man claims to have dreamt of Dunk, and in a drunken stupor, fearfully warns him to stay away. Upon arriving at Ashford the next day, after speaking with a disgusting tournament organizer, Dunk learns that because his alleged knighting had no witnesses, he'll have to find either a lord or another knight to vouch for his legitimacy. His mind is immediately drawn to Sir Manfred from House Dondarrion, whose banners he saw outside. You may recognize that house as the House of Beric Dondarrion from Game of Thrones. You see, Dunk and his mentor Sir Arlen served House Dondarrion during a war against a Dornish rebel. For context, at the time of the show, Dorne had just become a part of the Seven Kingdoms roughly 12 years prior, yet some Dornish lords were naturally against this union and led rebellions, all of which were eventually thwarted. Despite Arlen's service and injury in said service, the incredibly obnoxious Manfred refused to even acknowledge Dunk's pleas, not even willing to entertain the idea of vouching for him. Dunk does, however, have a very different experience with another house. He finds himself in the pavilion of Lionel Baratheon, also known as the Laughing Storm. He's the head of House Baratheon, an ancestor to Robert Renly and Stannis from the main series. Lionel was by far the standout character of this episode. In my opinion, Daniel Iron's performance channeled notes of both Tyrion and Oberyn, while still perfectly embodying the fresh, unique, lovable character that George wrote. After an awkward introduction, Lionel, who has grown to assume everyone he meets either wants something from him or wants to kill him, realizes that Dunk wants neither. He admires Dunk's earnestness and good heart and is finally able to let his guard down. The two become quick friends, bonding over dancing, drinking, and deep late-night conversation. The episode ends beautifully with our two core characters, Dunk and Egg, dozing off under a tree, staring up at the stars. As the shooting star soars overhead, they take it as a sign of good luck for the adventures to come. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to bring up a few other quick points of note that I didn't really have a place for elsewhere. The two cousins Dunk encountered on the training grounds, one of whom later invited him to Lionel Baratheon's party, are from House Fossaway. Though not, to my memory, present in the Game of Thrones TV show, the house pops up a number of times throughout the A Song of Ice and Fire book series. While wandering the tournament grounds, Dunk stumbles upon a puppet show and becomes enamored by the show's narrator, who appears tall and awkward like him. Though the show is visually portraying a knight's duel against a dragon, the words for narration can be read as a metaphorical retelling of Dunk's story in this very show. When trying to get a hold of Manfred Dondarrion, Dunk finds himself speaking with a number of sex workers in Manfred's posse. They dunk on Dunk quite a bit, but one jab in particular sticks out among the rest. After a jest, one of the sex workers says from one whore to another to Dunk. This line particularly triggers him, causing him to get pretty upset. I wonder if this is intended to address the theory, popularized by Preston Jacobs, that Dunk may have been a child prostitute when living as an orphan on the streets of Flea Bottom, before being rescued by and taken under the wing of Sir Arlen. Though never outright confirmed in the text, Dunk's reaction here definitely adds fuel to the fire of that theory. And that about does it for the series premiere. Despite the minor issue I outlined at the beginning of this video, I loved this episode and its faithfulness to the book, and I can't wait to see where the season goes from here. If you enjoyed this breakdown and would like to see more Song of Ice and Fire content of this nature, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week for episode 2.